King Henry VIII is one of England's most controversial rulers, and his reign as monarch is often overshadowed by two key features of his rule. First being the turbulent and often deadly relationships he had with his many wives, and the second being his split from the Catholic Church and the formation of the new Church of England and adoption of Protestantism within the nation. But what most people often seem to overlook is just how difficult and challenging the last years of King Henry's reign were for the monarch. Not only physically but mentally and emotionally as well, and this played a huge role in King Henry's demise. It is well known and documented by contemporary sources that King Henry suffered from a plethora of illnesses due to various injuries he received throughout his life, but also due to the morbid levels of obesity that made even simple tasks such as walking or even standing up exceptionally difficult for him. And in this video we will be doing a deep dive into the various theories and discourses present in academic circles about the different potential illnesses that may have resulted in the death of King Henry VIII on January 28, 1547 at the tender age of 55. One cannot discuss the health of Henry VIII without shining a spotlight on the morbid obesity of the monarch towards the end of his life. Weighing an estimated 392 pounds or 178 kg at the time of his death. Although King Henry was a tall individual at over 6 feet in height, it still isn't possible for a person to carry such an excess amount of weight on their body and not have to contend with a number of obesity-related illnesses. The primary of which would be cardiovascular diseases such as heart disease or even heart failure. This will lead to increased risk of complications such as difficulty in breathing and excessive swelling throughout the body. And according to contemporary sources, as I mentioned previously, there is a strong evidence that even small tasks such as walking a short distance or just trying to stand up from a chair would cause King Henry to become short of breath very quickly. Therefore, it makes logical sense that the most popular and commonly stated hypothesis as to the reasoning behind King Henry's death is heart failure, which is a common cause of death for obese individuals suffering from cardiovascular diseases. And if one considers the excessive amount of alcohol and heavy in fats diet that King Henry would regularly indulge in, it is not difficult to comprehend why a large percentage of historians believe heart failure is one of the most logical and probable reasons behind the death of King Henry VIII. Another commonly discussed discourse is that King Henry was suffering from type 2 diabetes, and this untreated medical illness could be a plausible explanation as to why King Henry may have been inflicted with recurring infections, leg ulcers, and also the exceptionally poor healing of his wounds. And it is these chronic leg ulcers in particular which will be our next central point of focus. King Henry received a jousting injury in 1536 when his horse fell on his body and trapped him underneath it. This mishap left him with severe leg injuries that would bother him for the duration of his life, and this would result in chronic pain and recurring ulcers on his legs, with his left leg in particular being more troublesome. After this jousting injury, King Henry would be unable to walk without the aid of a walking stick, and as his weight and age continued to increase, his legs would suffer even more greatly, with leg ulcers and other infections being a common occurrence. The problem with having these continuous and persistent infections is that they result in a high probability of causing systemic inflammation, and even sepsis in worst case scenarios, which is a life-threatening illness and would have been especially difficult to manage considering the limited medical knowledge of 16th century England. And it is due to the various reasonings mentioned previously that a commonly held belief is that King Henry may have died from a type 2 diabetes complication, with sepsis being proposed as a highly probable illness that may have been responsible for the death of King Henry VIII. And the final theory we will be discussing as the illness that could have claimed the life of King Henry is the possibility of renal and liver failure causing a slow and agonizing death for the obese and illness-ridden monarch. This is again another theory that hypothesizes that a combination of health problems such as obesity, chronic infections, and diabetes could have led to organ failure, in particular failure of the kidneys and the liver. The symptoms of organ failure are not always immediately obvious and can have broad symptoms such as jaundice, swelling, confusion, body aches, and just an overall decline in health and well-being. So once again, taking into consideration the lifestyle, overall health, and medical knowledge of the time, it is not difficult to comprehend that King Henry may have been suffering from organ failure, with renal and hepatic failure being highly probable culprits in his untimely death. So based on all the evidence we have available and the elderly age of King Henry at the time of his death, I think it is safe to surmise that he died due to some sort of illness, with my top 3 contenders being heart failure, sepsis, and kidney and liver failure. But perhaps there is another cause of death for King Henry VIII that I may have missed out on, so be sure to let me know in the comments down below what illness you think could have caused the death of this controversial monarch. And lastly, remember, if you want to explore the death of history's greatest figures, then subscribe to my channel Historical Exit, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Bye.